So a wee bit of a progress report on Kelly Station. In my gun building shop, I've got 3 walls up, as you can see. Leaving the last one until I get the chimney built, and I'm actually at the point where I'm going to start building the chimney. So I've got the firebox finished. I've got the first layer of floor down. I'm going to be putting a second layer. In this area, I'm going to have a set of barn doors that will open with my workbench about this height. Which is the height I like to work at. I'm going to have beautiful natural light coming into it. I've got 1 additional window and a door. Pretty straightforward. I might put a little cot in here so I could take a midday nap. Anyway, I made some significant progress on the Palisade walls as well. I've got the redoubt about halfway done, and with any luck, I'll finish it today, and I'm down to approximately 60 feet of wall left, and I started out with around 400 plus feet. So yeah, I'm getting awfully close to having the Palisade walls finished. There he is.
Hey, how you doing?
How was the journey?
Excellent. Very good traveling.
I'd like to introduce Tom Forier, who is now very recently the Brigadier General of the British North American troops for the War of 1812.
That's correct. I have the overall command. I assumed the position January 1st.
So would you be so kind as to inspect my humble fortification?
I look forward to that.
Okay,
yes.
Let's take a stroll. So what we have here, Tom, or what we will soon have here, is our powder magazine.
Okay.
So I've got a lot of work to do yet. It'll be bricked in the front. There'll be a solid 4-inch plank door into it, and
that's the depth of it there?
That's the depth. That's
so how much powder are you going to hold in there?
I figure it'll probably hold about 600 pounds.
Whoa.
Roughly.
Keep that well protected.
Should work, eh? And I'll take you down to the redoubt. I just finished it yesterday. We're getting close to actually having the entire Palisade walls done. So I've got a lot of other things to do I'll explain, but right now, yeah, 60 feet to go and a redoubt that's almost finished. So aside from the main gate that you came in, Tom, we've built in 2 emergency doors, one here and one on the north wall. Finished this yesterday. I still have raised platform, so it'll have a platform about here, all the way around the octagon shape, which will defend down this wall, and in any direction they can come from the forest.
Very scientific. And making sure you got the lines of sight and covering all the approaches to your fort.
We hope so. So I'll take you over to the blockhouse. So I was going to build 2 blockhouses, one in alternate corners, which was typically done on homestead fortifications. But I built one and decided, no, I'm not building this.
That was enough work.
I'm not building this second. So let's take a wander over to the,
right on.
To the blockhouse.
You have a blacksmith shop here.
We have a smith shop on site, and as I mentioned, the gun building shop, when it's finished, doing some scratch builds. Needed a special place. I tried doing it in the blacksmith shop, but it's just too dark. So anyway, one blockhouse, the one and only. But again, it will defend as it overhangs in the upper, like most blockhouses, this wall and that wall. It'll have 2 bunks in the bottom and 6 hammocks in the top, so it'll sleep 10 soldiers.
Okay. And then you'll have loopholes or musket holes to shoot down?
Loopholes, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and in all 4 walls as well, yeah. And house the troops.
So what's that there?
That would be an 18th century refrigerator, sir. So they called them food caches or elevated food caches.
Keep out of reach of the carnivores or other game?
Correct,
Yeah.
bears. I'm missing a piece of tin on it, but so we have a long ladder that goes up. We hang our quarters of meat in there in the winter. So depending on the winter, it can be 4 or 5 month cooling area for meat, essentially. Put the ladder up, go up, carve off a chunk of meat, put it in your spit or cooker, and take the ladder down.
Very practical, but life's a lot different here on the frontier than in Montreal, isn't it?
It is that, sir. It is that. Off to the final wall and then to the tavern.
Oh, I like the sounds of that.
So we've built in a second emergency escape door. As for sleeping troops, the primitive shelter will sleep 5 to 6. The cabin will sleep 5 to 6, or the tavern, when it's not occupied by drinking soldiers. And finally, to defend this wall, we have a wall gun that mounts on this block that will defend this area, should the attack come from this area.
So the wall gun, that is literally that oversized musket?
Correct. Yeah. I ultimately, I love to have a cannon on the second floor of that blockhouse. That's whether that comes to fruition or not, I don't know.
The wall guns are pretty formidable from the ones I've seen.
Yeah. I'd like to get a couple of bigger ones. They were actually, they used them to capitalize on the fact that they could be moved. So if an attack were to come from the east, say, and they could take a wall gun off the west wall or the north wall, move it to where the danger was coming from.
And as I understand it, with the length of the barrel, tremendous range and accuracy with them too, right?
Yeah, my friend, the one that I'm currently using, put up life-size soldier targets at 40 yards, so that the ratio would indicate a human at 100 yards. And he put them 3 yards apart, so 15 yards of soldiers, and he touched it off and he hit all of them. And I don't know how many he would have hit if he'd extended that line, but yeah, quite a formidable tool for defense. Anyway, I think there's a cold ale waiting for us, and I'd like to pick your brain a little bit about your role, reenacting as we understand it today, and where it's been, where it's going.
Excellent. Look forward to that.
Let's have a beer. So as you can see, sir, we are doing our part to try to recruit for your forces.
49th Regiment, a fine group of men.
Mm-hmm. I was with them for a number of years, and we get a lot of visitors here to the tavern, so and when they see that they can take the king's shilling, we've been able to sign up a few.
Am I safe drinking in your taverns? Are there any shillings in the...
I don't know. Let's go in and find out. Welcome, sir.
It's marvelous.
Have a chair. May I take that fine hat?
Please do.
I might want to give that back. That's a little fancier than mine. That's a grand hat indeed. Have a chair? I'll get you an ale. So both you and I, Tom, have a passion for history, obviously. Also for educating the public. I'm assuming that's a safe thing to say about yourself as well.
Very much so, yeah.
So I'd like to explore what it's like in your new role to try to orchestrate these large events where I mean, as a reenactor, you show up on Friday, you pitch your tent, you have your battles, you strike your camp, you go home, but you have a much bigger role in terms of choreographing battles, the safety aspects of it, and maybe you can elaborate a little bit.
I certainly oversee, the battle planning, the scenarios, some of the initial work with the site for preparation, especially if it's a site that we don't go to very often, to make sure that the reenactor needs are considered. There's adequate and enough access to water, fresh water for the reenactors, firewood, the comforts reenactors need, known as porta potties, or a real luxury if you have proper flushers, that they can use. Mm-hmm. I'm letting my incumbent, second in command, step forward and run a lot of the on the field event and do a lot of the planning. So I'm there to support. There's no manual or book. A lot of it's kind of on-the-job training, right?
You're training the next replacement of yourself, sir?
Very much so, yes.
So do tell, Tom, what is the current status of reenacting from your opinion? Like, I know COVID slowed us down or stopped it essentially for a couple of years.
Yeah, I think you have to consider which time period. I'm quite pleased with what I've seen from War of 1812. I think our units did a great job through COVID, keeping engaged, being creative, finding different ways to, even if they're virtual or online events. A small example, it's a tradition at Fort Meigs every year we burn the wheel, so during COVID it was done virtually. Some folks at someone's farm and everyone else watching on their computers. But and we've put a lot of focus on recruiting. So there's two aspects to it. There's retention. So it's important that units, if they go through all this effort to attract people, that they keep them once they get them. Mm-hmm. And then we try to give new tools and skills for recruiting people, and especially young people. So we see some of our units are much younger. Creative use of online technology. One of the units has done a great job recruiting through online gaming. They always have chat or there's means to talk to each other, and there'd be stuff like, "Oh, this is so cool." Yeah, well, I'm doing it for real this weekend. Oh, what do you mean? Well, I'm a reenactor, and then that's how they manage to recruit new young people to their hobby. So. And
you are doing it for real this weekend. You're on your route to when you stopped here at Kelly Station. You're en route to the Battle of Chrysler's Farm.
Exactly. Yes, Eastern Ontario.
Yeah. Kind of the turning point of that war in some respects.
Yeah, it's happened, I guess, November 11th, right? Another reason for that to be Remembrance Day of 1813. But you had two large American forces were looking to link up at Montreal and sever the St. Lawrence so that supplies could not reach Upper Canada. Upper Canada would be starved into submission. So a small shadowing naval and armed force of British followed the Americans. The Americans sent a rear guard ashore to try to swat the British aside, and the result was a British victory. And then around the same time, the Americans caught wind of a defeat at the Battle of Chateauguay. So both American forces were turned aside and went to winter quarters in Montreal, and to a lesser extent, Upper Canada were preserved, because of these two battles.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know it's quite interesting to see new folks coming into the hobby. I know it's a common conversation by us silver-haired folk sitting around campfires.
But I love it because it brings so much energy too. Like the one unit I can think of, the 2nd York, a bunch of young guys, and it's hard to find enough things for them to do to burn off some of their enthusiasm. Right? So I call them the hounds. So quite often, there'll be they'll be sent running on a flanking attack, or just to burn up some of that energy and enthusiasm.
They take great hits in the battlefield too. They face plant. Yeah. They don't get down on their knees and kind of.
But it makes it fun for all of us, right? And then, it goes into planning scenarios. Peter, you've done it a long time. I'm sure. I know there's events where people rolled their eyes and saying, "What's the point in going? It's the same thing every time." Mm-hmm. I've been doing it for 20 years. So we try to reimagine scenarios and give some different twists, or put some different units forward as an advance guard, or a picket, giving different units the opportunity to be in the spotlight and give people different experiences. So that's some of the role that we can play in retention too, right? Mm-hmm. To keep this fresh and exciting for everyone. That keeps them coming back and staying engaged in the hobby.
Exactly. I also want to bring up your other group that you're very actively involved in, and that's simply called the History Symposium. And I think you're kind of the header, for lack of a better word, of that organization.
We're incorporated as a not-for-profit, and we're also registered as a charity. So we've been able to do a lot of stuff because of the generosity of our patrons. Our recent return to an in-person event we did as a hybrid conference, we offered for no charge, because we had the money through donations. We've just finished our third annual 3-minute thesis competition, where we focus on Canadian graduate students talking about Canadian history. So we offer every year $1,000 in scholarships.
That's marvelous.
And that comes from our donations. So, we are a not-for-profit in the truest sense. We don't take anything for the work we do. In fact, if you look at the list of the most prominent supporters, all our names are there. So we back up our enthusiasm with our own money as well, too.
Good for you. Good for you. Keeping history alive.
Yeah, and when something as broad as history, you could talk about so many things, and so we wanted to put some guardrails up so that there was some logic to what we do. So, we look at the War of 1812 and Napoleonic Wars. We'll look at the Regency period, kind of from a culture perspective, and then we look at Canadian history. So those are our primary themes, and so pretty much everything we have, you can shoehorn into one of those areas. Mm-hmm. And then we've been really fortunate. We've had a lot of prominent historians. It's probably cost me a lot of money having to buy their books, coming across these people, but it's absolutely remarkable. We had a Napoleonic conference with 4 of the leading authorities globally, right? We started with Beatrice de Graaf in the Netherlands, Andrew Field in England, Alexander Mika Birdze, who's a Georgian from the country Georgia, but he's at the University of Louisiana at Shreveport. And then we finished with Everett Rummage in Texas. So as the day went on, we went farther west, but we had all these kind of leading lights in
academics.
Yeah.
Shedding sound history for us. I'd encourage anybody to tune into this program. It's fascinating, some of the speakers you've had.
Yeah, there's that, and then we try to fill the gap. We have an annual conference and then 8 live streams in a year, and then we find different opportunities to put a little video clip up, maybe something from a reenactment, or we find someone that we want to talk to and record. It's not necessarily a big live stream event, but the live streams are a lot of fun. We do it on YouTube, and there's a live chat and a high degree of interactivity there. So Great. People really feel like they're part of an event. Chris, as the co-host, he monitors the live chat, the questions for the Q&A he'll bring forward from our audience and comments they're posting there. But quite often, someone knowledgeable in the audience will answer someone's question right there in the chat. So it's kind of fun to watch all of that develop as well, too.
Back to trying to recruit. It's been my observation, and I've been involved in this in decades, that maybe we don't do enough to reach out to the public. And I'm at events we're there, we want to enjoy ourselves, we're immersed in what we're doing. Public are walking by or through our camps, and I think we need to take that extra effort to get up, say hello, welcome them in, explain what we're doing. But you related a story to me earlier about the first time you attended a reenactment as a non-reenactor, and here you are, a Brigadier General. But let's go back in time and just relate to our audience that story.
Sure. I had no idea reenacting even existed. So I'd come across a pamphlet in a hotel lobby talking about the recreated siege of Fort Erie, and it talked about their event. So I went with my brother-in-law and my son, who was quite young at the time. We went as spectators. And when I was there, I was totally blown away. Like, they talk about a mind's eye. As you're reading something, you picture what a character might be like or an event. And then this matched my mind's eye perfectly, right? And when I was, wow, it must have been just like that. And I probably was ready to join a unit right then and there, but we walked through the encampment. I was more or less dying for someone to say hi or talk to me. If anyone had talked to me, I would have joined that unit there on the spot, right? But no one did. And they were all giving the sense that they were busy doing important stuff. It's important to engage with the public.
Absolutely.
And then I find a lot of public probably don't want to interrupt. They worry maybe you're doing something important, but if you're cleaning a musket, then do it right next to the path the public's walking. I've seen guys clean their musket and there's 20 people standing around watching.
It wasn't orchestrated, it wasn't planned, and he has a personality that will engage them and get them involved in history.
But whether it's cooking or doing little things around the camp, and then say something to someone standing there watching, then it's funny talking to Jim Hill, who's the director for historic sites for Niagara Parks Commission. He talks about Fort Erie, and they poll the public after an event, and what did they like the most? What really stood out to them? Was it the candlelight tour? Was it the battle reenactments? Was it their tours of the fort, the visitor center? And then generally speaking, the top visitor experience was touring the encampments and talking to the reenactors. So that the people enjoy it, and they, I think, get caught up in, as a hobby, our enthusiasm and passion for what we do.
You need to get out there and share it.
Yeah.
I have to thank you, Tom, for the visit. A toast to you, sir.
Oh, my
for
pleasure.
Keeping history alive. I mean, this guy is so involved in what he does that you probably dream red at night, do you? I'm thinking. Anyway, cheers to you, Tom.
And cheers to everything you guys do. I admire your work too.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Cheers.